Hi, my name is Rajesh Advani. I work as a financial specialist with the Water and Sanitation program. I'm based in Kenya. I'm going to talk today about an innovative program for financing small piped water systems in Kenya. As early as 2003, WSP started looking at the financial viability of small piped water systems, which currently supply about approximately 10% of the population in Kenya through roughly 1,200 small pipe systems with anything from between 200 and 1,000 connections. What we found was that these systems do not often have access to finance for rehabilitation or expansion, and that's because public funds primarily go into urban water, and in rural water public funds go into areas with no access to finance new systems, which leaves existing systems in a gap without any access to finance for infrastructure investment or expansion. In 2007, WSP and KRAP Bank, in partnership with the Global Partnership on Output-Based Aid, GPOBA, and the Public-Private Infrastructure Advisory Facility, PF, launched a program, launched the Kenya Microfinance for community managed water projects. This project provides subsidies to community water projects that want to borrow from the market to fund infrastructure development. The community water projects invest 20% of their own equity into a project. 80% of the cost of the infrastructure investment is provided by KRAP Bank, which is a local commercial bank that specializes in microfinance lending, and these projects are given some specific output targets to achieve. The output targets are in terms of revenue and the number of connections. Once the output targets have been achieved, an equivalent of 40% of the project cost is paid to the community as a subsidy under the project. This subsidy is immediately swept into the community's loan account, which essentially pays down the loan by half, which means that the post-implementation capital structure of the project looks like 20% equity from the community, 40% loan from Kenya, from KRAP Bank, and a 40% subsidy from the GPOBA. There were 10 projects that were financed in the pilot. We see that of those 10, there has been significant increase in access. There has been tripling in the volume of water produced by these projects, a tripling of the revenues, and essentially the revenues have been sufficient to meet all the operating costs and pay for the debt service. The project is now being scaled up with an additional 35 projects targeted to be financed by 2013. The project has received additional grant funds from the European Union, and we expect that a total of roughly $3 million will leverage $6 million in finance from the markets. In terms of the lessons, the key lessons that have been learned from this project, one of them is that the communities have little or no collateral to offer to the lender. The lender therefore has to be prepared to lend to projects on the basis of the cash flow that will be generated from the project on sale of the water. The tariff impact on the project is naturally significant because not only is the project paying for O&M costs, they're expected to generate sufficient tariff to pay for a part of the infrastructure cost as well, which is why the subsidy is so critical, because the subsidy ensures that the tariff remains affordable to the end user. Another thing that we found was that proper project preparation is absolutely essential for rolling out a project of this type in any country. There have been significant investment gone into working with these communities to develop bankable loan applications that are technically feasible and financially viable. And so any project considering a similar approach must make sure that there's adequate funding for the development of a robust project pipeline. It can then be appraised by the commercial banks for financing. Finally, one of the key lessons from in terms of replication and scale up is who will take up the costs of this project development. What we envisage from this project is that the government will use its funding for rural water projects and try and leverage the funds that they have rather than financing 100% capital costs in rural and peri-urban systems, which is currently the case. In thinking down this line, they would have to think about providing sufficient funds for project development, for project implementation supervision, and finally the required subsidies for supporting the infrastructure costs.